Thank you. I have to say that this is my first event. I came here specifically to ask this question. But first I have to say that, and I'm sure many feel this way, having a conversation with you, having a chance to ask you a question is the closest that you could probably feel, or that I feel, to actually having a conversation with God. So I want to thank you.
We represent your ability to personally align, because each of you has that full awareness and attention upon you all the time. Sometimes an environment like this just makes it easier for you to expect it, but sometimes that even works against you a little bit, because we don't want you to need this in order to trust that it's there for you all the time. You see, Esther's an example of someone who's in the receptive mode. You are too.
So about a year and a half ago, I was working out, and a lot of times when I'm in some type of activity, I have a mental dissociation from whatever it is that I'm doing, and this is when this thought stabbed me in the stomach like a knife. And you've been asked this many times. I just feel like I have to ask you to maybe be able to actually wrap my head around it once and for all. And that thought was, I am going to die one day. And it hit me so hard is because we are, and before you say there is no such thing.
No, you're going to die.
No, yes. In the physical. It hit me because we as humans, this is what we know right now, being in the physical body, touching, feeling, listening. And
it's not an unusual thing to be in a wonderful state of mind and a wonderful state of being. You're working out, you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, you are in that disassociated state, as you say. It's not an unusual thing that when you are feeling your most zest for life, that's when a thought that would come to an end would feel really, really uncomfortable to you, because, oh, it's so delicious to be here in this physical body. We're not going to bore you with trying to convince you that as wonderful as that state of being is, that the reemerging in a non-physical is so many times more than that we can't even find words to explain it. If you think you like life in this body, you're really going to enjoy that leaving behind of all resistance in the other. But at the time that you're loving someone the most, that's when the idea of them not being there is the most painful. That's just the way it's got to be. You can't have it both ways. You can't focus on wanted and unwanted at the same time. So we think that it is a wonderful thing when something that you know is inevitable. In other words, there's not one of you that says, I'm going to be the exception to that. What's that crazy lady talking about up there? She's talking about that I won't always be in this physical body. Of course you know you're not always going to be in this physical body. And so this is one of those subjects that we are really wanting you to close the gap on it. We're wanting you to find a way to figure out what that means, what the whole of your life experience means in terms of being an eternal being.
And I don't want to be fearful of that. I want to focus on the things that I enjoy. I think the fear comes from the unknown, that what that transition is like.
The fear comes from you thinking a thought that is in opposition to what Source knows about it, because you're thinking of death as ending. Source knows that it's not ending. Right. You're thinking of it causing you to be really different than you are. Source knows that that's not the way it is either. In other words, your perception of what death is, so when you focus upon it, it is so contrary to what Source knows that it is, that of course you're going to have that uncomfortable feeling about it. I want to approach this in another way for just a moment. So imagine that you are a mentor to a young girl, a really little girl. She's just 3 or 4. She's old enough that she's beginning to ask questions. And she says to you, tell me what it's all about. I really want to understand. And you think, well, it's time for this little girl to know things. And so I'm just going to level with her. She might as well learn it early. So you say to her, your body's going to stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. And all the clothes that you have now are no longer going to fit. And she looks at you. She just got something she really likes. And she's got on these little shoes that she just loves. And so your conversation with her is upsetting. And then you say, and you're not always going to live here with mommy and daddy. Now she's in terror. Well, where am I going to go? Well, you'll figure it out. You're going to go live with somebody you don't even know now. Probably in a house far, far, far away from here. And your mommy and daddy will come to visit you because you know they really love you. Well, you're going to strike terror to the heart of this little girl who, even though you're telling her the most natural and wonderful things in the world, she's not in a vibrational place of hearing it. And so that's sort of kind of how you all are about the subject of death. It's not easy to talk to you until you become vibrationally oriented. Esther thought that she was at ease with the idea of reemerging in the non-physical because she'd been allowing us to flow through her for so many years. And she knew what the feeling of Abraham was. She knew what the feeling of all of this was. But it wasn't until her dear heart, Jerry, made his transition into non-physical that she even came close to realizing that it's not only not the end of you, it's really the beginning of so much more. And because she was already in the receptive mode, she had the benefit of being able to now understand that it is the most natural transition in the whole world, that there is no disadvantage to it whatsoever. It's not what people think that it is, unless they are only see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, oriented. If you are wanting everything to manifest into what you can see and experience with your physical senses, then the death experience is never going to be something that you're ever going to be all right with. But once it becomes an emotional experience, once you tap in to the absolute vibration of the source within you, once you feel that all-encompassing love and well-being that is surrounding you, you've got to train yourself to be in the vibrational mode where you allow that vibrational non-physicalness to be with you all day, every day. And then there will be a time when the death experience will be an absolute non-issue to you too, because you will understand that it's always you, and that it's always love, and that it's always focus, and that it's always real, and that it's always more, and that it's always exhilarating, and that it's always fun, and that it's always love, and it's always sure, and it's always delicious, and it's always appreciation, and it's always moving forward, and it's always leading edge, and it's always wonderful. It's always all of that, you see. But it takes a little while. You might not be willing to give up those pretty little shoes yet.
So how can we teach ourselves or learn to embrace that so you can enjoy this?
By staying off the subject that is taking your breath away with discord, and getting on the subject of things that align you with source until your alignment with source is so understood and known by you, until you can shout to the world and mean it with everything that you are. Things are always working out for me. By allowing yourself to translate the thought of source, the thought of source. In other words, it's really tuning into the frequency of source. So you just do it on the subjects that are easiest until you show yourself what a good connection you have, what good hands you are in, how stable and solid the universe is. You see, you're not ever going to be able to, ever going to be able to turn on CNN and watch someone complaining about something or someone pointing out the horribleness of something. You're not ever going to be able to let that be your perspective and be in sync with source at the same time. It just can't be. The vibrational frequencies have to line up. So what we're asking you to do is care about that lining up. Care about that lining up just for a little while. Care about that lining up more than being learned in the world. Care about that lining up more than having a negative conversation with a girlfriend. Care about that lining up more than anything until you've shown yourself how easy it is for you to be in the receptive mode. And then once you're stable in the receptive mode, then you can start talking about those things that have formerly bothered you from your new perspective of alignment. You see, that's why we use the analogy of this sweet little girl who isn't ready to hear it the way you may want to tell it. You've got to show yourself what the receptive mode is more. You've got to show yourself that you have the discipline to focus in a way that aligns you with source. It's easy to focus on problems, There are rabble-rousers all around the world who get big benefit to themselves by gathering a big crowd to look at something awful. And they know your tendency is to do that because it's where your vibrational frequency hangs around. But you want to use your desire to feel good. That's what must come first, in order to help you to focus in a way that connects you with who you really are until you're there. Sometimes people think that when we talk about being in the allowing mode, the receptive mode, the allowing mode, the receptive mode, that what that means is you'll get to a place where then you can look at awful things and not feel bad. That's not what it is. You get into the receptive mode and then awful things don't come across your path. You get to the receptive mode and then you have the ability to see things as they really are. And so just as this little girl is misunderstanding how delicious her grown-up life is going to be, you're misunderstanding how delicious your tuned in, tapped in, turned on, receptive mode life is going to be. We promise you. You can be at the place where you will not fear death because you will know it doesn't exist. It does not exist. It does not exist. It does not exist. There is no ending to who you are. There's no ending to your recognition of you. There's no ending to the love that flows to you and the love that flows through you. There's no ending to that. You cannot cease to be. And that's the thing that causes most people to fear death. They worry about ceasing to be. They worry about not getting it done, or they worry about not proving themselves enough, or they just don't want to miss it. Fall in love with someone and find yourself in an airplane and say, oh, please, I don't want to die now. Last week it would have been fine, but this week, no. I want to live on and on and on. Well, that's what it's like when you tune in to this source energy, you see. We think this is a really good time for a segment of refreshment.